guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Conlan versus Gill fight. If you're new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do need a like video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Conlan is 18-2 with 9 KOs and Gill is 27-2 and 1 with 8 KOs. This fight is a 12 round fight in the super featherweight division. Conlan's last fight was a loss via TKO in round 5 versus Lopez, and Gill's last fight was a loss via TKO in round 4 versus Martinez, that being October of 2022, so he's had over a year out since then. There is obviously the questions that are going to be questioned around him and both of the fighters going into this fight. The main one, how well will they react coming off a loss, this being them trying to bounce back, and one of them's going to, but like I said, who's going to have the stronger kind of mindset off of a loss to then be able to rebuild and come into this. Both have been through a lot in fights. How has that kind of put an impact on them? I mean, Conlan stopped twice quite badly as of recent, and Gill been in some brutal fights as of recent as well. And they both changed coaches going into this fight from what I've heard, and I found that interesting. Conlan, I don't know who he's changed to, but he's gone to America, I believe, and he's got a new team, and so that could add an element to his game, where in the past he's changed coaches a few times, Conlan, and it's changed his style a bit, but he's never really suitably found a style that he's been seemingly happy with as of yet. And Gill has gone away from David Cole, from what I believe, and has now gone to go be training with his dad, I think, or somewhere closer to home for him. So obviously that could add a hometown kind of more relaxed element to it, but also at the same time, when you get coached by your dad, how willing are they to let you go through fights where he's been in some where they've been very tough performances and very tough fights, and the one against Guerfi, I mean, you have to think about, because Guerfi was beating him throughout most of it, and then all of a sudden Gill lands a shot and then it turns it round. But how willing is a fighter's dad or a fighter's family going to be to let them kind of take any punishment like that? And is it going to be a bit more relaxed now, a bit too relaxed for Gill? Maybe he doesn't really want it as much as possibly he used to in the past. There's questions around, is this just a money fight for him? That's what David Caldwell seems to be saying. Well, I think I heard that in an interview, but you know, we'll have to wait and see if this is the case or not. Conlan is the home fighter. I mean, it's not in his home country of Ireland, it's in Northern Ireland, I believe, but he's still home fighter. So, you know, we'll have to wait and see if that plays a factor at all. Of course, they're both coming off losses. Conlan's devastating the knockout versus Lopez. Lopez, great shot, and he didn't look great, Conlan, after receiving that shot. But then Gill's last performance was also a devastating stoppage and a brutal stoppage against Martinez, and obviously he's had over a year out since then, and obviously that probably has reset his mindset and he's coming back a bit more determined. But is the demon still going to be there when he gets into it, gets into the ring and gets hit with a big shot? We'll have to wait and see. But to speak about them both as fighters, Conlan is a high-level skilled boxer. He has always been that. You've seen that from the amateurs with him. He's a very talented amateur, and he's always had that high IQ and that very skilled boxing ability. He has much more experience at the high level than Gill, and makes it possible a bit of a mismatch this fight. He is consistently dropping his opponents. Obviously, he doesn't always necessarily beat them doing that, but he's consistently dropped quite a few of his opponents as of recent. He's got solid feints. He is fast. He's explosive early. He will catch you off guard early. He has great shot variation. He can outbox you. He is willing to go out on his shield. He has great boxing fundamentals, like I said. He's got a good jab, changes levels well. He's accurate. He's sharp. There's definitely great attributes there that you can see from him, and something that you don't necessarily see a lot in fighters at even the high level, this kind of highly skilled boxing ability. But it's just little things like, is that enough? Like, is that enough to win you a fight against the top level guys? Do you need a bit more than that? And it seems like he possibly does need a little bit more than that, and possibly it's just how stacked the division is at the moment. But he's a very talented fighter, and it's just possibly he's just got too much of an amateur style, or he's just struggling too much with the world class levels, and possibly it's just the world class levels just being that level above and being at such a high level at the moment that he just can't beat them. But I think this fight against Gill is definitely a more favourable matchup for him, and of course Gill's never fought at this level before, and so like I mentioned, a more favourable matchup for him. Negatives about Conlan: he's been hurt badly, like I mentioned. Is that going to play a factor with him? He may be overlooking this fight, to be honest. Obviously, like I said, Gill's not really ever fought at this level. Possibly he may be overlooking it himself and thinking, oh, I just need to win this one, I can get back to fighting for world titles again. But is that going to be the case? And obviously he has to win this one first. His speed and power, it does go a bit later on. He can gas himself out a bit. He sometimes lacks or has too much aggression. That seems something he's always really struggled with in his career. He started off early on having the amateur style where he's just kind of trying to collect points the whole time and wasn't really being overly aggressive, wasn't really turning up the tempo too much, and was just doing what he had to do to win. But then he became more aggressive and became a good early aggressive fighter early on, and like I mentioned, he was explosive, catching you off guard early, dropping fighters early, but then it was gassing himself out a bit too much. And so how, going with this new coach, is that going to change it now? He can struggle to finish fights. I mean, if he's dropping fighters early and not finishing them, maybe that says something about he just possibly doesn't know to an extent how to do it, or just isn't naturally as used to doing it. He leaves his head and body quite open when he does attack, to be fair, and so that's something that defensively you can exploit, and it means he can get timed and has been timed. He struggles a bit in close as well, and in a war I don't think he thrives that well. He can lean in a bit, to be fair, with his shots as well, and that puts him off balance to an extent at times. And sometimes his footwork as well, kind of similar to when I say leaning in, and footwork, it can start off good and starts off light on his feet, but when he's having this attacking style, he's trying to plant his feet, and maybe he just doesn't necessarily know how to plant his feet or when to plant his feet as well as possibly he could do. But to speak about Jordan Gill, he's a solid boxer as well. Technically a good boxer, a sound boxer, got good fundamentals and a good jab and mid-range type fighter. So I feel like this fight, stylistic wise, definitely favours both fighters much more than their previous opponents, being Martinez and Lopez. They're being just more aggressive, front foot, powerful type fighters. This fight definitely more favours them. He has the ability to give his all and has done in fights, but I don't know if his mindset's going to be willing to do that in this one. He's got a relatively high guard, he's got solid movement, he's accurate, he's got a calculated offense. You can see he is relatively controlled and composed when he is on the offense. He can fight well on the back foot and does fight well on the back foot most of the time. He can get into a rhythm, and he can get into a rhythm quite quickly. He circles around the ring well and moves quite well. He will let his hands go. He's got good long straight shots and is relatively good at keeping a range until he gets caught, and that's when, if he gets caught with one shot, that's where it can go wrong. But he's got solid timing as well. So like I mentioned, a good solid skilled boxer, but is it just going to be too little to go up to the highest level for him? Negatives about him: he has lost at a lower level. He lacks motivation from what it seems. I don't know if his head's in the right place going into this fight. His chin may be gone. I mean, every shot that Martinez was landing, it didn't, like, they were powerful, but just everyone that were landing was just dropping him, and it was just like maybe the chin's gone now and he's just got no resilience to it. He struggles against pressure. He may even lack heart now and desire for the sport, and maybe not willing to go out on his shield as much as he used to be able to. And Conlan might, I think, still has that for him as an attribute. He can be bullied, can be pushed back. He struggles fighting close. He lacks power himself. He may look for a way out in this fight. You never know. He leaves his body open as well. Sometimes he was even too confident. I think in the Martinez one early on, he was relatively too confident and did drop his guard a bit when he was jabbing. And you can't be doing that against Martinez. And that's when he got caught. And that's when the confidence all goes at once. And you see it sometimes with fighters that happening. He will leave his jab out in the process sometimes as well. He doesn't really have much head movement either. He doesn't really have a massively fast tempo. He lets his hands go, but it's not really at a crazily fast tempo. He's also been through some bad beatdowns, and you'd have to argue that beatdowns, as bad as they have been for him, have probably put a worse of a dent into him than possibly Conlan's just big shots. And obviously the fight versus Wood, I wouldn't really say it's necessarily a beatdown because it was a close fight, and it was just a later well, when the knockout happened, it was just that one round. And so if it's just 2 rounds out of the fights where he's maybe been hit big or as big to knock him out, it's definitely not as bad as being beat consistently 10-12 rounds for a fight, or getting stopped consistently, getting beaten up versus Martinez within the 4 rounds that it went. Conlan is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Conlan will win via stoppage in round 4. In my opinion, Conlan still has a bit about him and still wants to win and has a will to win, and I think he'll come on early, and I think he definitely has the makings there to stop opponents early, and I think he will. Won't surprise by say stoppage. It wouldn't surprise me if it's a corner stoppage. As like I mentioned, I don't know if he's willing to go anymore, and not going to say he's going to quit, but I just don't know if he has that desire anymore, and I think Conlan is going to win relatively convincingly. And then, I mean, obviously that can put him back into a stacked division. This is a super featherweight fight. I think Conlan fights better and is a more of a featherweight fighter, and he fills out better at the weight. So I think he's going to stay at featherweight. So I've just put featherweight opponents here. Obviously, he could fight a super featherweight, but I think he's going to stay at featherweight. So Josh Warrington, if he's staying at featherweight and doesn't end up rematching Wood, that could be a fight. The winner of Ford versus Komatov, that could be a good fight. Obviously, they're fighting for the WBA title, the one that Wood vacated. So Conlan could step in, and that could be an option, and possibly his maybe last chance to fight for a world title. Or Ball has been going through the rankings very well, and this could be a good step up for him as well. Somebody who's been very experienced at world level, similar to that of Dogbo, but just possibly still fighting at a higher level nowadays if he does convincingly win against somebody like Gill. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoy. Like if you didn't like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.